Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hey, today what we're going to be talking about is lapping rings. More specifically, do these Arken Optics Halo Rings need to be lapped? Now I'm going to talk a bit about what ring lapping actually is first, and then we're going to get into checking out a set of these Halo Rings, these 30mm Halo Rings that I've got mounted up on this rifle here, and see if these things really do need to be lapped and if it's going to benefit them at all. So what is lapping rings? So I've got a set of economic rings here that I used to have mounted up on an economic platform. And if you look at these rings here, you will notice there's some paint, there's some material removed inside where the scope would actually be mounted. Now, what a lapping rings does is when you've got your rings mounted up on your platform like this, is what it's doing is making sure that your front and your rear ring, that everything is in perfect alignment as far as mounting and the manufacturing tolerances. And I'm going to tell you or show you how that's done. Now, the kit that I use for lapping rings when I do this is this Wheeler kit. Now, this is the 633266 30mm kit. Now you can get this also in a 30 and a 34, a 1-inch. There's a lapping bar, a lapping kit for whichever size scope you want to deal with. Today we've got the 30mm kit and a set of 30mm Halo Rings. Now what I want to show you guys, if you look close at this setup right here, I've got the Halo Rings mounted up on the rail already. These things are snugged up, they're all torqued where they should be. I had the EPL4 in place, so I know I've got the rings where I want them. Now the next thing that you do before you get to lapping these things, lining things up, is you're going to check first. You're going to check these out, and this kit is pretty nice. Now this kit comes with these two little deals like this. You can see there's a little point on there. There's a front and a rear one, and what you're going to do is put these in here. And I've had both of these measured out to approximately 1 inch from here and 1 inch from here. And you're going to get these really close just like this. Now I'm going to show you guys some extra footage here of up close while I'm talking right now of how close these two little points are right here. Because what we're trying to do to see if these rings are aligned and if they need to be lapped or not is see how close these two little points are. And what I can tell you is this 30mm set right here, these are off by, it is a little bit. Now I've had optics mounted up in this and everything's zeroed and held zero and worked really well. But if I want to be extremely precise, I'm going to go ahead and say these are off by just a hair. So the next things that you're going to need to start doing this lapping process is we're going to remove these. So we're going to get these out of here. And I like to keep them where I had them. So this was my front one and this was my rear one. And something, you know, I'm going to get into the stuff that you need when you're doing this. If you look at this set of rings that I had lapped in the past, you can see I've got an arrow on here and I've got an R. I've got some markings on here. That R meant rear. This was the rear ring, and that arrow in my case, I want to line up both arrows the same way. Rear pointing to the front. This is what I'm doing here. Once you do the lapping, having a Sharpie or something on hand is gonna be important. You really wanna keep these in the position that you do the lapping and marking them if you have an etcher of some sort. I just find that using a Sharpie, it works really good. A couple of other things you're gonna need on hand. You're gonna need the lapping bar. Now this is the bar that we're gonna begin to use to remove material from these rings, and it comes with this kit. Kit comes with these guys, and it comes with this and the lapping compound. Now I like to use this 220 grit compound. I think it works really good. It takes the material off at a good pace. So we're going to need some of this gun oil, WD-40, something to clean this stuff off in between sessions. You can use something like this and some paper towels or something to clean this stuff up. Now this does get pretty messy and grimy. Generally, you might want to have some rubber gloves or something on when you're doing this. But first thing we're going to do with this lapping bar, this little handle comes off of here. and there's a couple different holes on it, and everything we want to do uniform and exactly the same. In this case, the bar, I'm going to do the alignment with the hole to the rear. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to feed this into here, get it into here. Once I get this all into here good, now I might have to loosen these up just a little bit to get them into here. Get everything lined up. Do this really quick here. I'm going to get the lapping bar where I need it to be. Got it kind of roughly centered up, right? I'm going to put my handle back in here. Now, before I get to actually doing some lapping, I'm going to show you guys what the process is actually about. So we're going to take a wrench. We're going to tighten up the top of the clamshell on the rings. Now, we're not going to torque this down to torque specs because we need to be able to move this lapping bar. But we're going to snug these up, and we want to make sure that the gap on this side and the gap on the far side are about equal how we're going to have it when we've got these mounted up, all right? So I'm just going to mock this up right now and not actually do this for a second. So I would snug these back up to where they were about equal on both sides. Now again, I'm just mocking this up. And then what we'll do is we're going to take some of this compound. We're going to get some here, here, and here. And then we're going to start working this bar back and forth. Now what I suggest is working the compound for maybe 60 seconds, 90 seconds, and then lightly turning your wrench. Now I'm talking barely at all. Just snug it just a little bit more. Work it back and forth again for maybe another 60 seconds. And then you're going to get done. And what you're going to do, get this handle out of here. This is a little bit of time-consuming process doing this precision work. Then what you're going to do is you're going to remove this rod. All right. You would remove the rod. You would wipe everything out, spray it, clean it some with your WD-40, and you'll be able to look inside the ring a little bit and probably see if you're removing any of the finish or any material. Generally, as close as these were, they're not going to look like this. There's a lot of material that came off of here, but you can take a peek in there once you get it cleaned off. But what you're going to do after each time you spend a minute or two lapping is you're going to put these back in here, and you're going to get them back where you had them. In this case, I had these about 1 inch. So I had and what you're looking for is to be in about the center. But I want to get them back to the same place that I had them when I started. And you're going to look and see, are these two little points lining back up? Are they closer than they were? Are they getting closer? And then you're just going to keep doing that process until you get happy with how close you've got these. So let me stop talking. I'm going to set the camera up. I'm going to get the camera going where you guys can watch me doing this. And I'm going to actually lap this set of 30mm Halo rings. So let's get at it. Well, all right, here we go. We're going to do most of this with one hand. So again, we're going to pull out both of these. And now we're going to get the lapping bar back in place again here. Get this in place here. So if I can do this with one hand, I'm going to need to loosen up back clamp again just a tad. There we go. Should go into place now. All right. Got them pretty tight still. I'll loosen these up just a little bit. I know I can get it in place. All right, there we go. Gonna get the lapping handle on here. So now I've got the handle in place here. Everything's good here. I get the compound, our 220 here. And we're gonna get a little bit of this stuff here. You don't need a whole lot. Gonna put some on the front end and on the back end. Get some of it here. And again, you don't need a whole bunch of this stuff. It's really pretty messy. All right, so I got that in place. I did make sure that I had the clamps about equal on the left and the right, or the near side and the far side. So now what we're going to do is really just start working this. And if I get close, you can hear the compound working. And I want to make sure that I go around, and I really go all the way around so the lapping compound is getting on all sides of the rings. And again, don't worry about the mess too much right now. I'm going to work this for a minute or two here. I can feel it loosening up already a little bit. Now again, these rings are already torqued onto the pick rail. They're torqued to spec. I'm going to loosen that around just a little bit. And now I'm just going to check these. I'm giving this just barely a turn. I mean, it's maybe moving a 0.5 millimeter. Not a whole lot. I felt it loose a little bit on that side. And they may loosen a little bit just from you actually working it. So there we go. Now I could probably do this a little bit better with two hands. I think I actually got it a little bit too tight. I can't let the compound do the work. You don't want the physical pressure doing the work. We want that 220 grit doing the work here. So what we're doing is we're going to keep working this rod back and forth. Here we go. Now what I'm going to do is pull this out of here, wipe everything off so we can take a peek and see if we removed any material and if these points are going to be closer than they were. All right, so see it loosening up there a little bit from the material. So let's get this off and see where we're at. With that lapping rod all removed, we've got that out of here. This is where the WD-40 is going to come in. We're going to hit this a little bit here. Going to put some spray on there. You know, WD-40 is some great stuff as a cleaner. It's really not a very good lubricant for anything. But we're going to try to get the majority of this lapping compound out of here. Put the camera up in the right spot. Get this cleaned off so you guys can see, did it remove any material. So I'm going to keep wiping this off, and then I'm going to pull both these tops off, clean it really good, and take a closer look at it. Alright, gonna dump my screws so I don't lose them. Now I really want to show you guys what happened with that one session of lapping these rings. Do Halo rings need to be lapped? Do they benefit from being lapped? I do like these Halo rings. I think they're a really good ring for the money. I think they're a great affordable option. I've had no problems using these rings. All right, let me get this back one off here quick. I really want you guys to see what happened with only that one quick session with the 220 grit on the lapping bar with not a whole lot of tension on this ring. Let me get these out of here. All right. Now I know which way these rings go because the rings have a little Arken logo up on the top. So I'm using the WD-40 to get that 220 grit out of here. And I'm going to wipe out the bottom one here. Now I'm going to show you guys something before I even go to putting the little bars back in place like this, okay? So here's our back ring. Look what we got here. We have got some painted material removed. Now I can look at this and tell that It doesn't appear to have taken off actual metal. If I kept going, it would. But that 220 stuff is quite abrasive. So this is the back top of the clamshell, and our front one looks the same. Now look how you can see the little bit of the imperfections in the machining process of how these were casted or machined or however they're manufactured. You can see the minor imperfections. Now by doing this, this is really going to allow, using those proper inch-pound torque specs, to clasp down on the scope the correct way without having to over torque it and getting things moving around. Low recoil platforms, 22s and stuff, this might not even be an issue. But in doing a high recoil platform, this could be a deal breaker. So let's get these on here. I'm going to put these on, and I'm going to put these posts back in and see how close they are. Alrighty guys, so I've just finished up getting both of these alignment dowels in place so we can check this out again. Now if you look at these, you really can tell that since I did the lapping here, the points are a little bit closer than they used to be. So it was some lapping that, could we say it was needed, or did they just benefit from it? In this case, it did not take very much. I only lapped these for 1 minute, 1 minute and a half, 90 seconds maybe, and it took off enough material to get both these little pins just a little bit closer to darn near perfect touching. These are close enough now that I'm not going to go ahead and do any more lapping with this. So I'm going to put the lapping material, the lapping compound, but all this stuff away, and the finishing touches that you need to do before you go ahead and mount your scope back up is you really got to make sure that you get all of this 220 grit off of your rings. Otherwise, when you put that on there, that abrasive stuff is just going to be grinding. It's really just going to grind into the finish on your scope. So the next thing you're going to do, finishing this up, is we're going to pull these back off, not lose that screw. And a good thing these Halo Rings come with some spares, but we're going to get these off of here. And again, when we mount this stuff back up, we're going to use the fat wrench, torque wrench for it. But while just doing this, using this little wrench that they come with is plenty for doing this process. And our last step, so again, this is our back ring. I'm going to set this ring towards the back here. I'm not sure the camera angle I got going, if you guys can see where I'm setting everything, or if that really matters. But I'm just kind of going to get both of these tops off here. All right, I don't really care where the screws go, but again, this is the front, this is the rear. So there they are. You can see the finish that has been removed from these. And what I'm going to do is hit these. I'm going to have to spray everything. One more little thing with the WD-40 here. I'm going to get this here. Now the last thing you're going to do is you don't want to be leaving WD-40, gun oil, whatever you're cleaning this with, you don't want to leave that stuff on there. So what I like to use is, well, this is my lens cleaner, but some kind of isopropyl alcohol degreaser. You want to clean this stuff back off. And that next final, that next final step, what you want to do is you're going to take your Sharpie, and I like to put a little arrow. That's my little system. So I know that goes to the front, and I put an F in there. So this is my front ring. The arrow might not be needed on these Arken Halo Rings because they've got the Arken logo on there. But again, arrow and an R. So I got an arrow and an R on there. So I know when I take these rings off, and you know, you guys might not move scopes around as much as I do, and I'm making all this content, but this scope may come off of this Howa 1500. I might have 3-4 different scopes mounted up on this thing. So I'm going to clean everything off, get that all set up. And hey, in a nutshell, that is what the lapping process has evolved. It's not hard to do. Can't tell you the cost on these things right now. They really do go up and down. This is heavy steel. It's some precision stuff. It's very, very meant to be straight, but it's not hard to do. There are some heated warnings that you need to do, meaning when you are doing the lapping process, you definitely don't want to be cranking down on these screws and really using mechanical force to remove material. The lapping process is all about the actual compound. This is like polishing your car or something. So you want very light tension, a little bit of moving, let the compound do the work. You can remove so much material that you quickly destroy a set of rings and they won't actually tighten back up on the scope anymore. So there's not a whole lot to it. You can see it's a relatively quick process. If I was just sitting down here not making content, this might take me start to finish 20 or 30 minutes. I'd clamp everything in there. I would check everything out, start to doing it, getting done, clean. It takes more time to clean the stuff than it does anything else, but it is important to check on the front end and check on the back end. Now, one of the things that I didn't mention that you can do is if you realize before you even start lapping that your tips are off by, I mean, we're talking a little bit that you don't even really want to consider doing the lapping. One of the things you can do is not lose that, but one of the things that you can do is take your rings and switch them front to back and try that out. Now, this lapping is something that it's taking away the really small inconsistencies inside the scope here. You know, looking at the bottom here, you can see that it did not take off as much material on the bottom half as it did on the top half of these things, but it did take off some of that painted finish and it lined up these points better. So in this case, to answer that question, do the halo rings need to be lapped? I'm gonna go out there and say as close as these points were that you can get away without lapping, but will they benefit from lapping? I definitely think so. And for the cost of getting a lapping kit like this and being involved with your platform, I definitely think it's worth it. So, hey, let me know. Have you lapped your rings? Do you find that it's a must? Do you find this is overkill? You don't need to do it? And have you had good luck with these halo rings or whatnot? So, hey, thanks for checking back into the channel. Get on out there, get on in here, get your platform squared away, but get on out, keep on shooting.